We've got former Aggies defensive coordinator, now current Aggies defensive coordinator for the football team, Nate Dreiling, on the show.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, glad would you have you on. And I guess on that subject, obviously coming from, I guess we always call them the Aggies down south. Is that
Or the new mags for short
yeah,
seemed to
true.
be the. I don't know how that came about, but that seemed to be a common way to describe the New Mexico State Aggies. But
Does that make the transition any easier? You don't have to like switch from saying like "Go Aggies" to "Go Bulldogs" or whatever. It's like just still the Aggies.
I have a 3-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 7-month-old, so that was an easy transition for the kids. Main reason we took the job, it was just in and out and same mascot. So no,
There
no,
we
it's
go.
been good.
Maybe manage to hang on to some of the same memorabilia as long as it doesn't have the
I
colors
just got to change
involved.
the color though.
Yeah,
That's the
it's true.
problem.
So,
Well,
Yeah,
Coach,
yeah,
we appreciate you spending some time with us. I know it's been whenever you make a change like this, it's busy to get to know the new staff, the new players, try to implement your style of defense. But how would you assess how things went in the spring? Just kind of rolling up your sleeves and figuring out what you had to work with here in Logan.
yeah. Well, I think a couple things come to mind. First, Coach Anderson let me hire my entire defensive staff, so I brought my inside linebacker with me from New Mexico State, two secondary coaches I worked with at University of Oregon, and my D line coach I worked with at Pittsburgh State. So everyone I've known previously, I know it's a phenomenal person and a phenomenal teacher is kind of the two things to look for to make the hire. So they've done a unbelievable job of kind of getting this thing kickstarted and finding the pieces here were much better than I thought coming in. You look at the stats and defense have struggled last year. As we know, but the pieces they have in place, we're just putting them, I feel like, in different spots to kind of let them shine a little bit brighter and be more natural players. So we are extremely pleased with what the roster looks like. We brought a bunch of guys in of our own, but it's been a good spring ball and a good summer so far.
as you kind of touched on this, obviously the elephant in the room here was the struggles of the defense last year. A lot could be said about that, but obviously new team, new year. But like, what's kind of the key for you as far as helping the team turn around from what was a bad year last year and making sure you maximize the talent you have on this roster for this upcoming season?
No, yeah. So for me, it's not necessarily what you do, but it's how you do it. So we spend a lot of time in the how and the little things. So essentially, I'm trying to get my guy able to go whoop the guys in front of his butt, no matter what the offensive scheme is. And I think football has less to do with offensive scheme and more to do with how many tools you can give your guy to give him the ability to work with it and win his one-on-one battle. So we've spent a lot of time and just developing our guys and getting them ready. Schemes will always change, but if you have the best 11 players out there, you're going to be successful. That's our huge emphasis.
That being said, Coach, how would you describe the schemes that you prefer to try to execute?
For me, offenses do so much these days. We try to be very simple for our players, but give a lot of different pictures and illusions for offenses, quarterbacks, and offensive coordinators. If they can just sit back there and play the same defense the whole game, they're eventually going to find something. So we always changing from a 3-man front to 4-man front, or changing our defensive structure to give them something entirely new look. But for us, it's just the same old stuff that we've done a million times over again. So that's how we feel like we'll be able to slow them down a little bit, hopefully. And then, like I said earlier, just fundamentals and techniques and the how, and make sure you emphasize that.
Yeah, so you mentioned playing multiple fronts and playing different ways, keep offenses on their toes. Like I know a lot in the past. Usually, when you hire a new defensive coordinator, people ask to run like a 3-4 base defense, 4-3. There's always like the 3-3-5 and whatnot. And was that ever a worthwhile discussion anymore, or was it ever a worthwhile discussion? Given that it feels like you're never in your base or what might be a typical base defense anymore, where a lot of times you have to have 4 or 5 corners or defensive backs on the field, just because offenses are putting 3, 4, 5 wide receivers out on the field all the time.
No, I think you're exactly right, and it's more so about matchups, game in and game out, and being able to roll with the changes. Right, if you stay the same, eventually you're going to get either outsmarted or the other team's going to be stronger. But if you're able to adapt with the change and stay with the evolution of the game and what teams are trying to do every single week, it's just one, it's harder for teams to prepare for you, but two, I think it gives yourself the best chance to match up with every single team. So that's kind of our philosophy.
Again, we're talking to Nate Dreiling. He's a new defensive coordinator for Utah State University. And Coach, after you've assessed how things went in the spring and you've seen what's been going on in the summer, how would you describe the strength of the Utah State defense?
I feel like we have a great group of players that have played significant snaps, whether they're guys that we brought in, maybe from our previous school or other schools, or returning starters from this place. But we're not a young team, right? And what that allows you to do is allows you to move fast and continue the progression.
Oh, we may have lost you for a second there, Coach. I think we dropped audio there.
Well, that's not good.
Let's see. Coach Dreiling. I don't know if that's on us or on him. But I don't know if we'll see if we can reconnect.
Pretty successful on defense.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, Coach. We kind of lost you for a second there. I apologize.
No, but yeah, basically, if you can just line up and be smart and run at the football, you're going to be successful. So that's what I felt like coming out of spring, and now we can continue on with the scheme and keep implementing more and more stuff as we go.
So, Coach, we've got our text line, and one of the texters earlier today had a kind of two questions in one, so I wanted to pass along his question to you. He said, I would be curious to hear your perspective on who the leaders on the defense have been to this point through spring and summer workouts. And he said he'd also love to hear an update on the health and development of the linebacker room.
Yeah. The leaders of the defense, Ike has been a really good player here in the past and has done such a good job since we've been here as well at that free safety spot. We brought a safety with us from New Mexico State, Jordan Vincent, that is extremely hard worker and very vocal and very tough. He's done a good job. And as for that inside linebacker room, right, that was the big question mark. We kind of replacing two starters after spring ball. So we brought in a transfer, Big Clyde from the University of Purdue that played over 350 snaps last year in the Big Ten. He's done a good job so far. We brought in Division II player John, that was one of the best Division II players in the country, as well at the inside linebacker spot. And we also return, guys like Cole Joyce, Bronson, Logan Peely. So we have a bunch of guys coming back, and Big Max is hopefully going to get cleared with his knee injury here a couple weeks into the season. So it might be by committee to start out with until we figure out who's the best two guys. But we feel the depth of that room is very good, which kind of compared to where we were about a couple months ago.
You've got you're able to see a lot of the players that you have on your roster to this point. There's going to be some additional players arrive here in the fall, here in about a month and a half or so. What can you expect out of them? Anyone that is coming in that you haven't been able to see yet and that you're kind of excited to see in an Aggie uniform?
Let's see. With the transfer portal, we are very picky to make sure we don't miss. So we only take guys that we previously coached or know someone on the staff that they were at before. So, like, we still have a corner that started for me for 2 years at New Mexico State, went to TCU. He'll be here in July. Andre Selden, he started at the University of Michigan. He was a big-time high school recruit. So he'll be a good player to help add into the back end. And we still have one or two D ends maybe coming down the line, as well as some D tackles. So there's still a lot of question marks on guys. It's crazy. Like college football, you're still recruiting for this year's class, and it's coming up on July. So I can't give you definite names yet. We're still hopefully waiting on a couple more signees, but the more the merrier. We need more depth and more talent in the rooms to let the cream rise to the top. So that's kind of where we're working towards.
So just focus on another one of those position groups, defensive line. You added a lot of guys there. There was some turnover there with Holly leaving and Paul Fitzgerald, but you've added a lot of talent to that room. What do you feel like about the guys in that room, defensive tackles and defensive ends there?
Yeah. So that's one of those positions we wanted to bulk up is the interior defensive line play. We have a bunch of guys returning that we feel good about. A couple guys that got banged up in spring, but then we also added, Gabriel Iniguez, who was with me at New Mexico State. We added Bruce, who was at the University of Iowa before going to junior college. Colin Vaughn, who's coming from a Division II school, as well as Taz and Migo. We have a bunch of guys who's played a lot of ball, which kind of talked about, is kind of now the strength of the defense is older guys that have been around the block that are mature and ready to roll. So that room is going to be one of the biggest competitions I feel like going into fall camp is who's going to come out as a two starters, but it'll be we want to play 4 to 5 guys at the inside. And then with the defensive end, the outside linebacker room, you got Blaine Spires, who is, probably going to be one of the best defensive ends in the conference, if not the best. He's a phenomenal pass rusher that's done nothing but a great job since I've been here. And, Paul Fitzgerald left, as you know. So we got Marlon Dean in that room. You got Anoka. You got Colin, or you got Sloan. So there is 3 to 4 guys, as well as Lawrence, the guy we just got from Washington State. It's a Salt Lake City kid. So we have one guy that's played a lot and a bunch that have played sparingly and are ready for their moment. So that'll be another fun position to watch.
Just based on your background and just your experience, how would you assess the talent level that's here in Logan versus some of the other places where you've been, the other stops along your coaching path, and then having that talent prepared to be able to compete in the Mountain West Conference?
Yeah, I think talent-wise, when you look at the offense and defense combined, it's very similar. We played Liberty 3 times in the last year and a half, and Liberty's, arguably one of the best G5 schools right now in the country. So I think talent-wise, we're very comparable to where they're at. We just need to now hit the ground running, and when fall camp starts, being able to mesh as a team, and being able to click on both sides of the football. And kind of help each other as you move forward. It's kind of been one-dimensional here with Coach Anderson scoring a bunch of points and having need to. If we can slow a couple of possessions down and get some punts and let Coach Anderson does what he does, we feel like we're going to have a chance to maybe rattle off quite a few wins. But that starts with a great summer and fall camp and just getting closer and keep working hard.
So I want to ask, kind of in relation with Blake Anderson's offense, obviously a lot of talk about how fast it goes, and sometimes that can create some challenges with the defense, maybe being on the field more than you expect. Is that something you're experienced with or have done before, where you've coached a defense or been part of a defense that's had to play with go alongside a fast offense, or is this something you're kind of adjusting to and figuring out how you want to, go along with that offense and how fast it ends up playing?
A little bit of both. University of Oregon was very fast-paced attack. But my last school, New Mexico State, I think we were last in the country in how slow we were going. So it is obviously you want to keep your guys fresh, but at the same time, that's why fall camp is going to be so fun because, yes, we'll have 11 starters in the program, but we're going to have 22 to 30-something guys that are going to play significant snaps since we will play so many with how fast our offense is paced. So it's not only just who can start, but how good your depth is and how reliable you can make that. And if you can get that 2 to second to third string people rolling and just as confident as that first string, that's when you're going to have something special. So that's what we're working for.
Coach, you already kind of alluded to some of the stars in your secondary, but looking at that group as a whole, how would you kind of see how that group is coming together? Perhaps one of the position groups that has some of the most experience coming back for Utah State this fall.
Yeah, you have Avante Dickerson, who we feel like is going to be one of the best corners in the country. Coming back, he wasn't with us in the spring ball with an injury, but he'll be rolling right now in the summer and fall camp. And JD Drew's been nothing but fabulous since we've been here at the corner position from Oklahoma, Booker T. Washington High School. So, and then adding Andre to that mix, as well as some other guys that we had, JUCO guys, EJ Fisk and Mason Edwards in the mix as well. So we feel like we got 5 to 6 corners that are competing for starting spots. And at worst, we're going to have guys that we'll be able to trust to go in there with very limited drop off from the first string to the third string. Safety wise with the high safeties, you have Ike and JV and Jordan Vincent, who we kind of mentioned earlier. And, Then you still have Francois, who's played a bunch of ball at the nickel position. Amari, who you'll see play nickel, free safety, boundary safety, kind of all over the place. So we kind of got some switch army knives that we feel like can play all over. And now, it's most importantly, just getting these guys in places that they feel comfortable playing and they can play at a very high speed. If you can do that where they're not thinking when the ball is snapped, then you're going to have guys being successful and make a bunch of plays.
So, Coach, you mentioned a couple of times, having the defense mesh as you get into fall camp. With the transfer portal era and how much turnover is, how much of an increased challenge is it to go through that process of meshing the defense, getting them ready, getting them all conditioned, and knowing the system in order to be ready by week 1 of the season?
Yeah, I think even more so is making sure you bring in the right guys, because you can find talented guys, and if these guys aren't going to fit in your locker room, then it's going to be a firestorm. So making sure not only you're going to get guys that can come in talent wise and win the Mountain West, but also mentally they're going to have the same core values and ethics that you want your locker room to have, and that your locker room players are currently thriving with. So that is a huge part to help jumpstart it. And once those guys do get here, right, that's what summer workouts are for. That's what guys, I tell them every single time when we break it down, they better have pool parties or barbecues or something where they're getting each other, getting around each other. Because as you know, the most talented teams don't always win, right? It's the ones that want to play the hardest for the guys next to each other. So that's what summer's about. It's not only getting stronger, but it's also building bonds that hopefully are unbreakable once Saturdays come around in the fall.
And I guess the last question for me is just, what does the rest of your summer look like before everybody starts reporting in late July?
So our players, all of them are currently here. They work out 4 times a week, run, lift. We have meetings. They do some, kind of 11-on-11 versus each other. But then in July, like I just told my guys, like, hey, I got to get away from you. You got to get away from me. So I'm on vacation for 3 weeks and letting them kind of run their own meetings to kind of get that ownership that they should have. Whether it's position meeting or team meetings, like they should be in charge and they should be able to teach this defense. So we kind of get some separation from each other. And then once we get back and end of July, it is it's full scorch. So it's a fun time for the kids, and it's nice to get away, but at the same time, everything is structured where they should be able to run it on themselves. And that's why having a mature group has been such fun so far.
So I'll ask one final question as well. Just kind of on the toughest challenges for you that you see on the schedule. Some of the toughest offenses you're expecting to face. Not just in the Mountain West, but on your schedule as a whole. What do you think the toughest challenges are?
I think the schedule is a very fun schedule. The big thing we got to make sure we do focus on ourselves every single week and how we can get better, and less about the opponents. And obviously Robert Morris out of the gate, we've game planned for them and felt like we have a solid game plan in place already. For that, we'll start getting rolling here once about halfway through fall camp. But everyone then's going to circle the University of Southern Cal game, and in LA, and then Utah at home. So those first 3 games are going to be awesome. Awesome. See where we're at as far as as a unit, offense and defensively, and see if we can bang with the big boys going into conference play. We hit Temple, and then we play at Boise to start our first conference play. So our first 5 games, man, we're going to be West Coast, East Coast, and kind of all over playing great opponents. So it'll be fun. Our guys are going to need to be ready right out of the gate, but we feel like hopefully we have the pieces in place, and now it's just kind of getting everything settled to make the run.
Nate Dreiling, the new defensive coordinator for Utah State University. Thanks for your time today, Coach, and hope you enjoy your summer. You going somewhere fun for your time off?
Oh man, taking the wife to Europe. So leaving the kids at grandparents and getting away. So no, it'll be fun, but we'll be back here in a couple of weeks and getting things rolling. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
All right, thanks, Coach. Travel safe, and we'll try to catch up with you here in a couple of months.
Thanks. Take care.
All right, Nate Dreiling, new defensive coordinator for the Aggies.